Hi, welcome to our booth on franchising. We're so happy you're here. Sarah and I believe that franchising is the most misunderstood and most overlooked form of entrepreneurship. So we enjoy educating the public at large about franchising, and hopefully we'll give you some insight today. This is going to be a quick, high-level flyover. It's not meant to go deep into the weeds. So please feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions at all, we'll give you our contact information at the end of this. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Sarah Wasco, and I'm the owner of Friendnet of Dallas-Fort Worth. And Friendnet is a franchise consulting firm. We'll share a little bit more about that here in a minute. I have 8 years experience in the franchise industry. I was fortunate to serve on the Friendnet advisory committee for about 4 years, and I was a liaison between our franchisor and other franchisees. Prior to joining Friendnet, I actually spent 16 years in sales and consulting with small businesses. So I understood a lot of some of the problems and roadblocks that small business owners have. And that's what attracted me to franchising. I'm actually a franchisee with 2 brands. Friendnet is a franchise, and I own 3 territories for that. And my husband and I also own 4 territories for a gym here in DFW. And I have lived in the area since 1987.
And I'm Roxanne Rapsky. I work with Sarah in her office. I handle the Dallas side of our operation, and she handles the Fort Worth side. I had a prior career, 20 years in mortgage banking. So like many of you going through a transition, I had a transition. It was very rough. I did it in a very, very horrible economy back when the markets imploded. So I've walked a mile in those transition shoes. I also owned a franchise with my husband for a while. We had a men's clothing store. It was made to measure or custom men's clothing in a mall in San Diego. And I also had the opportunity to co-author a book on transitioning for veterans. And the author of this book is a military spouse, a Marine spouse. And the co-author, one of the co-authors, Robert, was a 24-year Navy veteran. So that was really an honor. I provided the franchising piece and some information about networking in that book.
So I mentioned previously that Friendnet is an international franchise consulting firm. We have offices in the US and Canada, about 100 offices. We have national relationships and partnerships with SCORE and the Small Business Development Center. If you're considering entrepreneurship, I highly encourage that you reach out to SCORE and the SBDC. Their services are free. And I also, as you can see, we have a partnership with the VBOC as well, and really enjoy providing education to veteran prospective business owners about opportunities in franchising. Our services are 100% free. So as I mentioned, that if you work with SCORE and the Small Business Development Center, those services are free. SCORE are volunteers, and the Small Business Development Center, their fees are paid through your tax dollars. And the way we work is similar to an executive recruiter, where a recruiter is matching an employer to an employee. We are matching franchisors and franchisees, and our services are paid by the franchisor. So there's never any cost to our clients to go through our process and see if they can find the right franchise fit.
All right, so what kind of businesses do well in a down economy? We've got data now that not only shows us what kind of businesses are recession resistant, but also what types of businesses are also pandemic resistant. There were a lot of businesses that struggled, as you know, in the pandemic, but there are others that just thrived. And what's on this list are the ones that thrived. I'll tell you that everything in home services, anything dealing with the home at all really exploded. Businesses needed help. So business coaching, everything went digital because we were all locked up and couldn't get out and network. So really thinking about industries, I always try to say, is that a wants-based business or a needs-based business? And something that is a needs-based business will tend to do better in all economies.
So there's different ways to get started in a business, and I'm sure many of you are exploring how you might get started in a business. And one of those ways is starting a business from scratch. And there are many advantages to doing so. I mean, the first key advantage is you have total control. You get to make all the decisions. You can be creative. There's no rules in place. You get to set all the rules and really build a business from your passion. But there can be disadvantages as well. Just as I said, you get to do some of these things. In a lot of situations, you have to do some of them. And that can be complex. It could be hard to really make some of those decisions. And so a lot of people make some mistakes. And so the ramp up time can be longer. That being said, with longer ramp up time and some of the mistakes, unfortunately, there are a higher number of failures. And therefore, there can be limited financial options. You go into a bank or some lending institution and share with them your great idea. They're going to be a little more cautious because they don't have any documentation or any history to make a decision on. And because they do have the highest failure rate, it can be much harder to get funding for a startup business.
All right, so buying a franchise also has pros and cons. When you get into the world of franchising, you are really buying a business in a box. There's trademarks, there's proven systems, there is the franchisees. So not only do you get training and support from the franchisor, there is also training and support from the franchisees, which we refer to as a franchise family. There's also a lot of due diligence that you can do. Franchising is heavily regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So by law, every franchisor has to provide you with what they call a franchise disclosure document. And that document gives you a ton of information on that franchise. There's a lot of research that you can do with that document. The one thing that document has as well is it has to list every single franchisee in that system, as well as those that have left the system in the last 3 years. So you have an opportunity to speak to all these franchisees and hear about the support and the training and ask them about their finances and if they're making the kind of money that they thought they would, and are they hitting their goals? And really the most important question is, if you had this to do all over again, would you? So there's a lot of research that you can do before making an investment into a franchise business. There's also cons. One of the biggest cons is you don't get the secret sauce or these trademarks and the whole business system for free. So there's a price for that in the form of a franchise fee. And then there's also ongoing fees in the form of royalties for the ongoing support and training that you get. Because you're not doing something from your area of expertise or your passion, there are fewer industry options. There is some structure, so there are rules to follow. And a lot of times that works really well with veterans because you are used to giving a set of instructions and executing on those. So territory restrictions as well. The whole world is not your oyster in franchising. You're buying a certain amount of zip codes that you are able to do business in.
So a lot of people, when they hear about the word franchise, they assume McDonald's and $1 million. And we want you to know that there are many opportunities that are a much smaller investment than what you might presume or assume when you hear the word franchise. So when you take a look at this next slide, you're going to see really a good percentage here, and just kind of, this may be a little bit of a surprise to you, but as you can see, 26% of them are between 100 and 250, and another 13% are between 50 and 100, and it's a really small percentage there. Only 28% of franchises are actually over 500,000. So as Roxanne mentioned earlier, there's a lot of service-based businesses that Friendnet works with that did quite well during the pandemic. Those can be a lower investment because you don't have the overhead necessarily of brick and mortar if you're going out and providing a service to someone. So I think this is often a surprise for people, and really wanted you to know. And as we look at these numbers, this is all in. So this is not your franchise fee. And I get a little nervous when people start looking online and they see dollar amounts as they're exploring franchises, because generally that is just the franchise fee. So these numbers that we're representing here include working capital and, signage and maybe some upfront marketing expenses, and really probably enough to keep you going for about 3 to 6 months in the business.
All right, another myth that there is in the world of franchising is that you need industry experience, which is not true. Franchises are looking for skill sets. What are your transferable skill sets, and how will those transfer into your new business? And I always kind of joke and say that industry experience is more of a negative than a positive a lot of times with the franchisor, because then they have to train your bad habits out of you. They don't care how you've done it for the last 5, 10, 15 years. You're there to follow their system and do it the way that they do it. So it's almost better if you come in as a blank slate and they can train you. So franchising works because it's simple and it's duplicatable. And I actually think that's my next slide. Yes. So this is part of why you don't need industry experience. The skill sets, they're ingrained in you, right? You can't train that. But franchising is duplicatable, it's simple, and if you've got the wherewithal, they can teach you how to run their systems.
So one thing you really want to think about as you're exploring franchises, a lot of people lump franchises together. And the reality is they are not all the same. There's nearly 4,000 franchises out there. Some have more aggressive growth strategies than others. So just because there's fewer units doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad franchise. They just may not be, they may not have the same goals as franchisors that have more units. So obviously with 4,000 out there, some are going to be much more established, where there will be others that are newer. There are emerging brands and emerging franchises all the time. Some are going to be more structured than others. So one thing to really think about is what is important to you and how much structure do you need or want. I will say a lot of times some of the newer brands are a little less structured and will take some input from franchisees, versus those who have been around for a very long time may not be as open to franchisee input. They've done it a certain way for a certain amount of time and been successful. And so they expect you to come in and follow their system without any flexibility. And then another really key aspect about franchising is, as we saw on the other slide, there's a wide range in investment levels. And if you don't remember anything else from today, please take away the fact that there is no correlation between the amount you invest and your opportunity to earn. So there's always that, mindset of you have to spend money to make money, but in franchising, you do not have to spend more money to make more money. In fact, sometimes the lower investment franchises actually allow for maybe higher earnings because you have less overhead. And again, it's going to depend on the franchise, but just don't assume that the bigger the investment, the more opportunity you have for earning.
All right, and there's a program called the VetFran Program. It's been around since the first Gulf War. It was founded when our service members were coming back from that war, and franchising really wanted to give those that had served our country an opportunity in franchising. And that was both as a franchise owner and as an employee of a franchisor. So they came up with this program, and this wasn't just for those that served, it was also for their families, their spouses and their families. So I've got the link here on this slide, vetfran.org. Please feel free to visit that website and learn more about this program. But we have a lot of success with military members and veterans in franchising. And it's because of what you learn in the military, it transfers so well into business ownership, those leadership skills, those communication skills, the ability to execute when given a set of instructions. And, we've even heard, we hear some of the language that you all use at being in the service from some of our clients that we've placed that were veterans. And many of them say they kind of look at the franchisor as their commanding officer. And it's comfortable for them and it's familiar for them to be in that kind of environment. So I encourage you, if you're interested at all, please, once again, reach out to us.
So if you have a desire to learn more about franchising, we have a proprietary tool. It is called our Entrepreneur Profile, and you can find that on friendnet.com. And it helps us do what I mentioned earlier with making that match. And we get an understanding of your values, your motives, your competency, your leadership style, your communication style, to really learn what we can about you. It is a baseline. It is not a tell-all, but that's our starting point to really get to know you and see if there is a way that we can assist you in finding the right fit. Again, our services are at no cost. So if you would like to learn about opportunities or see if franchising could be your path to entrepreneurship, please visit friendnet.com and you can complete that profile. We would love to visit with you via email, via phone, text. You can also reach out to us, find us on friendnet.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're pretty much everywhere on social media, and would be more than happy to answer any additional questions or any questions that may have come up in this short presentation and visit with you a little bit more about franchising. As Roxanne mentioned, she focuses on the Dallas side of the Metroplex, and I'm on the Fort Worth side. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Good luck to you in whatever you decide to do for business. We wish you wild success.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the conference.